Welcome to One-on-One. I'm your host, Lee Adams, and today I'm just so excited about what we're going to talk about. If you're a sports fan, and there's so many sports fans in Western Pennsylvania. We got your Steelers, we got your Pirates, we got your Penguins, but there's also a thing called basketball. And basketball, when you think about Pittsburgh basketball, you got Pitt, you got Duquesne, you got Robert Morris. But the other thing about, and back in the old days, you had the Pipers, you had the Condors, but what really a lot of people think about in Western Pennsylvania is high school basketball. I was lucky to play high school basketball. I love high school basketball. We're going to talk a lot about that and a lot about basketball in Western Pennsylvania. Our guest today grew up in Springdale. He went to Ambridge, and then he moved to North Allegheny in high school. He coached at a plethora of schools, and his last stop was at CCAC Boyce. And one of the things he's known for is he's Dick Devenzio's little brother. Please let's welcome Dave Devenzio. Dave, it's great to have you here.
You know, I'm already mad at you. Plethora was my word that I used, and you already stole that from me.
I did steal it.
That's the only big word I have.
It's okay.
These people are watching. They're saying, "Who is this guy?" and now you're telling me. Now you're using my big word. So I don't know where it goes from here.
But we'll give you credit for that.
Okay. All right. I don't think you were going to give it to me. I'm taking it.
I think you're right. I would not have given you credit, But before we get into basketball and all these great stories that you have, we have to talk about fashion, because who's better to talk about fashion than basketball guys, right? And so you come in here with this Hawaiian shirt, Dave. So what's going on with that?
I actually have a story behind this.
Okay, cool.
I was coaching locally at one of my plethora of schools.
Great word.
And I was coaching ninth grade, and the head coach had us all wear a tie. And I didn't like that. I've never worn a tie in my life, and I just didn't like wearing the tie. But I complied. But then, I'm coaching in ninth grade and doing that. And then I watch him coach at the varsity game, and he gets mad at the refs, and he stands up and grabs his tie and throws it on the ground and stamps on it. And I'm thinking, that's not exactly the role model we're supposed to be, I don't think. So right then I said to myself, if I ever am the head coach, I'm going to not have the tie. What am I going to do? I'm not sure. It just so happened that year, my one vacation to Hawaii, my whole family, we went out, and it was during Thanksgiving, and the Maui Classic was going on. So I went into it's probably a mistake because the weather's so beautiful and the beaches and all that. And here I am going in to watch basketball. And it was the University of North Carolina and Dean Smith. But all the coaches for every team were wearing Hawaiian shirts. And I said, that's what I need to be doing. That's the look I need. So lo and behold, the next year I start coaching the women at CCAC to start with. And I said, yep, I'm going to start this Hawaiian shirt thing because we had a horrible team. I wanted to make sure they knew it was supposed to be fun. So I've stuck with the Hawaiian shirt for 20 years, every game. And
how has that worked out for you?
Actually, it's kind of cool because it's so different. You they know you for that. Like I'll be somewhere at a basketball game or at a grocery store, and I'll run into a referee, and he'll say, "Hey, where's your Hawaiian shirt?" Because I always have it on. So
it's your brand. It's your brand.
It is. It is. I don't have much going for me. So Lee, I'll take it.
I like it. I like it, Dave. And
now we're going to talk about your fashion.
No, I appreciate you saying that because we're doing a pivot. I've done this show for 24, 5. I need to go check where we started this, but in the 20 years mark. And every single show I've had suspenders on. Red suspenders, blue suspenders, black suspenders, striped suspenders for every single show.
And was there a reason for that?
I just wanted to be it's a great question. I just wanted to have some uniqueness to me. And I guess I probably have to say that Larry King probably had a little bit of influence, because he would just sit there and just say, "So what do you think?" Larry King was big in the interview. Huge, right? So I have to give him a little credit. And so once I started it, I thought, we can't stop this until today. And there's a reason why.
Okay, why?
And the reason is I've had a couple of people and a couple of women recently that have watched my show on YouTube, and their comment was to me, "What's up with the suspenders?" And so I took that question to be, maybe they don't think they're very cool. Maybe they don't think they're very cool. So I decided to pivot. As a basketball term, I pivoted, and we're going with vests. This is my first vest in 20-some years. We're rebranding. And so that would be like you going off of the Hawaiian shirt. I don't know if you can do that.
I don't think I can, but my other question is, okay, one of the reasons I came on here, we do have groupies, right, that watch us, and they'll be waiting for us outside afterward?
Yeah, autographs.
Okay, all right, well, good luck with that thing, you guys,
I think they're going to be around you with that shirt.
We'll see.
It's so colorful. You got to love the color. But so you are a Devenzio, okay? And Dick Devenzio is really considered royalty of Western Pennsylvania basketball. A parade All-American. There's only 4 first-team parade All-Americans in the entire history of Western Pennsylvania basketball. And so you're in the house with a brother that had just hit the top of the top as far as basketball. So what was it like growing up in the Devenzio household?
First, when I knew he was really good, but when you grow up with it, it's not, you don't think, oh, hey, he's going to be an All-American or he is an All-American. It's just your brother, and because my father, we might talk about a little bit, was a high school coach and a very successful one. A few years, like early on in my time when I started getting into basketball when I was real young, he had a point guard that went to Duke and started from Springdale. So
who's
his name was Dennis Ferguson.
Okay.
And it never, I saw him play on TV, which back then, it was something.
Yes, it was.
And then there were a lot of guys that played at smaller schools. So it wasn't such a huge thing that, oh, hey, well, he's this, he's that. But then when he got into high school and all these big-time names are starting to come into my house, like Bob Cousy and John Wooden, then you start thinking, wow, there's a little something more to this than I imagined.
A little something.
Yes.
Was the Chess Arena going when you were in Springdale?
Absolutely, it was.
The Chess Arena.
And here was the bad thing.
People don't know what the Chess Arena is.
No, they don't.
Tell them.
The Chess Arena was in Cheswick, which is part of the Springdale School District, and it was the social place to be. And unfortunately, we moved away from there in 6th grade, right when I was going to get to my heyday. Now, I'm going to say this for my brother. He put so much time into basketball. I don't know this for a fact, but I'll bet you he had hardly ever been to the Chess Arena, maybe once or twice. I was a little more social and wasn't as good a player. I would have been at that Chess Arena all the time.
So you're saying you're social?
I try to be.
I'm shocked, Dave.
Well, when you're not a good-looking guy, you have to be social. You have to attract the women with the shirts.
I understand. I understand completely. So, and there's a theater down there. I've been to the theater.
Yeah.
In Cheswick. So Cheswick
was the place to be.
I thought so. I come across the Halton Bridge from Penn Hills, and we go to the Chess Arena. But anyway, you move from Springdale to Ambridge. What prompted that move?
I would, we'd all, and we talked a little bit about yesterday about people in our family that are no longer here, and we'd love to go back and talk to them. And I never got exactly why we moved. It was my father's decision because he was a coach. He was a teacher too, obviously, but he had been in Springdale for 18 years. And when you've been there that long, I think things get a little stale. And then I'm guessing, like I said, I don't know for sure, but poor little Springdale, which is a small little town, they were in the same section with Fox Chapel, Penn Hills, Gateway, Churchill, and it was real like...
it wasn't real fair.
It was not.
We didn't have these divisions here. We threw them all in a pot, like stew.
You Penn Hills guys, there was always big men there, and
Yeah.
then Fox Chapel had the Nelson twins, and I think my father maybe wanted to move somewhere where there were some bigger people, but boy, did he pick the right year with Frank Kaufman and Dennis Weisick, who I don't know if Frank Kaufman ended up going to Purdue, and Dennis Weisick was a star at North Carolina, and my brother was good at Duke, and they ended up winning the state championship that first year he moved. So,
amazing team.
It was an amazing team, and I don't know. Like I said, I'm not sure the reason, but it was a pretty good time to move.
Yeah, so Denny Weisick is also only of the four first-team Parade All-Americans from Western Pennsylvania. And two of those four played on that team, that Ambridge team, which is considered one of, if not the best basketball team that ever come out of here. Although, some of the people from Shenley and Fifth Avenue might have something to say about that. But still, great, great team. And they played Shenley, didn't they, in the semis or something when they won it? And who played for Shenley then?
Shenley had the three that I can remember are Kenny Durrett and Petey Gibson. Kenny Durrett started at LaSalle and then played in the NBA. Petey Gibson went and played at New Mexico State. And Montel Brundage, I'm not sure where he played in college, but he was an excellent, excellent high school player. They had won the state championship the year before, and then both teams were undefeated, and it was kind of like they played at the Pitt Fieldhouse that you just talked about, and it was I don't know why they didn't play at the arena. I guess something was going on there. So it was a hard ticket to get, and it was intense. Ambridge won that game. Then Ambridge had to play Chester in the state finals, and Chester was undefeated. But I do remember this. They were ahead at halftime at Chester. Undefeated Chester was 51-21.
51-21. That was the final.
That was the score at the end of the first half.
Ambridge ahead.
Yeah.
By 30.
I was the ball boy. I had to take the warm-ups back in at halftime, and they were already setting up the TV cameras. And I even said something. Why are you setting up? He said, they kind of looked at me like.
That's amazing. So with Dick Devenzio, a first-team Parade All-American, I got to think that the who's who of college basketball is coming to your house. So was that the case?
Absolutely. Like I mentioned, Bob Cousy was the head coach at Boston College, and he was more godlike to me because I grew up a basketball fan, and he was
amazing,
the best point guard of all time until Magic Johnson came around. And so he's at our house. Matter of fact, I remember. He came on a Tuesday because they played Tuesday and Friday. He was the one my mother and father didn't make me go to bed on time because I had a certain bedtime. I was only in 7th grade then. But when Bob Cousy was there.
Bob Cousy's coming over.
But
Jesus.
Then one of my worst decisions ever. I come home from school, 7th grade, and it's pretty nice out. And I come in, and my mother, it's just me and her. My brother and father weren't back from school yet. And she said, there's someone I want you to meet in the living room. So I go walking in, and it's John Wooden. And even though I was a dumb 7th grader, I knew John Wooden. He had already won, I think, 3 national championships in a row. And I went in, said, hey, Coach, nice to meet you, da-da-da-da. I gotta bounce. And I left. And then when I look back and thinking, man, I could have had a half hour, me and John Wooden. Maybe I'd have been a success now, Lee. Maybe it'd have changed my life.
But you're here.
And I was going to mention that, yeah. Of course, one of the my big goals of all time was to be on Upper St. Clair TV with you, Lee, talking. So, yeah, I guess I did make it. It took me all this time, but I made it.
That's too funny. So, what was the short list for Dick Devenzio?
It came down, there were a bunch at the beginning. And he back then, I think you were only allowed 5 trips. But even though I'll tell you the 3 in a second, the story that I can remember, he went to Florida, and they brought you down for a football game, and they treated you as you can imagine. And Steve Spurrier was the quarterback for Florida back then. But my brother, maybe this is why he was a really good player, or I don't know. You be the judge here. He's with a bunch of other big time recruits, and the football, they had already set it up on the tee, and the game was going to start in 3 or 4 minutes. And I don't know how the conversation started, but my brother said, if I go out there and kick that football, will you guys pony up? So they all said, yeah, I'll give you $5, I'll give you this and that. My brother ran out on the field. The football that was going to be kicked off, they had to go retrieve it and bring it back because my brother kicked that football.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I guess he was that good that if I did that, they'd throw me in jail.
Exactly. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, because I wasn't any good. But when you're, a half-tailed player, you can't do that stuff. But when you're that good, I guess.
So Florida was one of the visits.
But it was one of the visits. But the final 3 were UCLA, North Carolina, and Duke. And
so we got John Wooden, Dean Smith, and who's coaching Duke at the time?
Vic Bubas, who was, most people don't know who he is that are watching, but he was, at that point, every bit, actually he was more well-known than Dean Smith at that point.
Great coach.
And John Wooden, because he won the championships, was known, but Vic Bubas was every bit as respected as the other 2.
So the people in your family, who were you all voting for? Who was voting for what? Who were you voting for?
I was voting for UCLA, which probably isn't a good brotherly thing because I'm wanting my brother to go across the country. But
why did you vote for them?
Because they were on TV.
Because
not all
you
games
blew
were
off John Wooden?
Even though I blew up John Wooden, I knew I'd see my brother on TV because it seemed like they were winning all the time.
Right.
So I said, I think you should go to UCLA.
And your dad thought what?
He should go to North Carolina.
He liked Dean Smith?
He liked Dean Smith so much. And
your mom, how about your mom?
I think she was kind of North Carolina too because Dean Smith was real good at selling the parents. But I think, and I.
So how do you think it went down? He got to Duke.
I think there were a couple things. First of all, you can't go wrong picking any of those.
Right.
But I told you about that guard that played for Springdale and then played for Duke. My brother kind of idolized him a little bit growing up. So we had pictures when that guy played there. We had pictures of all the Duke players up on our wall because we could get them. And then I don't know if this should have been a factor, but I can understand it. My brother's very best friend was a year older, and he was a football player, and he got a full ride to Duke. So he's down at Duke. So when he went down for his visit to Duke, obviously that guy showed him a good time and was saying, hey, yeah, come, we'll still be together, da-da-da-da-da, and he chose Duke. Was it the best decision? Who knows?
And then Denny Wysick, who was his teammate on that state championship team, he was a year behind him, wasn't he?
Correct.
And tell us where he went.
And so then, okay, this is how people change. And I had great parents, but this was kind of a little bad on their part, I thought. They wanted my brother to go to North Carolina, but then once he chose Duke, they wanted Wysick to go to Duke with my brother.
Sure.
So when he chose North Carolina, originally they got over it pretty darn quickly, but their first reaction, as I recall, was, and they can't refute this because they're long gone, so I can say whatever I want, right? I remember them being a little upset that he was going to North Carolina.
Well, you kind of can understand to a certain degree, but like at the end of the day, Denny Wysick has to do what's best for them.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
And I think my father and mother, I think it was just an initial reaction. I think it took a day or two, and then they said, yeah, well, hell, he's going He's going with Dean Smith and all these people we wanted him to go with.
So my brother, who was an accomplished baseball player, he worked at CCAC Boyce with you, my brother Ed.
Correct.
And Frank Kaufman was at CCAC. And so how about the story when your father got to Ambridge and Frank Kaufman wasn't even playing? Talk about that.
My father gets the job to go to Ambridge, and he knows about Wysick, but there was no cell phones or internet, so you didn't really know as much about. We heard there was a good sophomore down there, but my father goes down and starts talking to some people, and they said, "Hey, my father, I think, said, boy, I wish we had one more big guy," and they said, he said, well, they said to my father, well, there's a 6'9", 6'10" guy, but he's not playing anymore. And my father said, the hell he isn't. And my father made a beeline. I don't even think he stopped at the gym. He made a beeline to Frank's house, had a talk with him, and Frank decided, yeah, I'm going to play. And
where did he end up going?
He ended up going to Purdue, and he was having a good career, and then he hurt his knee. But thank goodness all this transpired, because I needed a job later in life. And I think if my father hadn't talked Frank out of coming back and playing ball, would I have got that job when Frank decided who to hire? I don't think so. Even though my interview skills are decent, they're not tremendous. So I think I would have been without a job. I would have had to maybe work for a living.
So
Wouldn't that have been bad?
So your dad helped you years
way
later.
Way after.
So you became good friends with Frank Kaufman and my brother?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. My first year there, after we talked yesterday, I was telling my wife a little bit about it, and she hardly ever came to the school banquet. Your brother was student of the year, which was no small thing. I mean, yeah, it's community college, but there's thousands and thousands of people to go there. And my very first year, your brother was student of the year and gave this really good speech. I can still remember it. And my wife remembered it. I didn't even think she went to the banquet with me. And she said, oh, yeah, I remember him.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
amazing.
So a good thing for you and your family.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. So Dick goes down to Duke, and he does what he does. But then did he play beyond Duke, or what happened to his career?
He had a really good, first of all, freshmen weren't allowed to play then. So you just played freshman ball. You didn't play in the varsity. But when North Carolina and Duke played a freshman game, the place was packed both times for a freshman game. Then sophomore year comes, and my brother starts right away, and he's having a really good year, and he's getting better and better and better. And then they're in the ACC tournament. They win the ACC tournament. Used to be just the best thing, because only one team got to go to the NCAA tournament. So it was about it. A lot of times those 8 teams in the ACC were amongst the top 20 teams, kind of like the SEC in football now. And just I would go every year. My poor brother could have sold those tickets for big money, but I wanted to go. But the first year, they win the first round, then they win the semis, and they're playing in the finals against North Carolina. And they're leading at halftime. And my brother, I'm a little biased, but I think he was in line to not only Duke win, I think he was going to get the ACC tourney MVP.
Unbelievable, rarefied air to that honor.
But my brother pulled back a little bit. I didn't really notice it. My father, as a coach, did. And then a guy from North Carolina named Charlie Scott just went off.
The first African-American player to play in the ACC.
Absolutely, and he was good, too. He was good. So he goes off, and North Carolina wins, and Charlie Scott wins the MVP. But after the game, actually my father waited a few hours, but then he said, Dick, you could have done more in that second half. And this was my brother's attitude back then. It's a good attitude, but it's not a good attitude. He said, well, I thought I was taking over too much, and the seniors, it was their time. And yeah, I know. Can you imagine that? And because my father said, well, that was a bad decision.
Well, do you think Where do you think that came from? Is it just that he was just an unselfish person?
He was, and I think times were a little different. I'm not going to give him all the credit for that. I think a lot of people thought more along those lines. Now no one thinks like that.
Yeah.
As soon as you step on the court, everyone thinks they're the All-American and they should be doing this and shooting all the time.
Yeah.
But I would think there were other players that would be thinking that same thing. But then anyway, but everything was still good. I mean, he had a good year. They went and played in the NIT.
Back when only one team from the ACC, the winner of the tournament went to
Correct.
March Madness.
So then Vic Bubas, the very respected coach, he leaves and to go into administration. They all liked him there. He just decided he wanted to do something else. And they brought another coach in that changed the whole system around. And I guess we'll call this a funny story. I'm playing for my father at this point at North Allegheny. And I hear the tail end of a conversation. And I hear my father tell someone, I came in the middle of the conversation. I hear my father say, Dave could be doing what Dick does for Duke. I thought it meant I could be playing in the ACC now. So I'm walking around, I'm feeling really good about myself. And I think that was like on a Monday. On Tuesday, I think I had the best game I had in my young career to that point.
Do you think it was because of that comment?
Yeah, it certainly helped. It certainly helped. I thought, my father was...
How about that?
He was like an old school Bobby Knight type coach who was usually negative. That's how he motivated. And then I hear that and I'm thinking, yeah. But then Thursday he's talking to someone else. And I hear the whole conversation. And it's... that new system that Duke does, all they do, Dick, he walks it down the court, he throws it inside, and he gets back to the mid-court. Dave could do that. And then I heard that Friday I had one of the worst games of my career. It wasn't quite what I thought, you know? But anyway, back to my brother. So that went on for 2 years. I'd say probably in this day and age with the transfer portal, he would have probably got out of there.
Yeah.
But you didn't do that back then. Right. So he stuck it out and he played the last 2 years, but not nearly with the success that he was hoping for. Yeah. The NBA, there were some teams asked him to try out, but he did not get drafted. He decided, at first he said, no, I'm not doing it. I'm done with basketball. But then time went by, and he ended up going and playing in Europe.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
For how long?
He played for a few years, and then he coached there for a few years also.
Did he?
Yeah. But now I got one thing I got to tell you. Before his senior year, he's going to Duke. He has one more year to go, but he was a major in political science. So he's following the mayoral race in Pittsburgh. And it was Pete Flaherty, they must have a statue, don't they, of Pete somewhere?
Very famous mayor.
Yes, and that's who he was shadowing. Like he and Pete spent all day together every day. But it was a real good race that year. I think he was going against a guy named John Tabor or something. But it was a real good race. But anyway, to fulfill his academic requirement, Duke let him stay in Pittsburgh until October 14th, because practice started the 15th, so obviously he had to be back in Durham by then. But so he stayed in Pittsburgh until October 14th. So school's about to start for me, and my brother says, I got to get some working out in here. He's a senior, I'm a junior in high school. And I look at I think I'm safe. I said, well, the only time we could possibly work out is like 6 in the morning. He said, okay, let's do it. So I think I'm a budding star in high school, which I kind of was, but I'm getting up before 6 in the morning. We're driving to North Allegheny's gym. That's when they opened the school at 6. And we would start working out, and then here's the part that I can really remember. We'd play one-on-one full court. And my brother was an intense kind of, the way he prepared, and I mean, that's why people get to where they are, and that's why I didn't get to where I was. I wasn't this type. But anyway, we'd play one-on-one, and he'd get the ball, and he'd fake me out and beat me. And then I'm thinking, okay, go down and score, then I get the ball. He would just stay there and dribble. So then I'd have to get back and get ready again, and then he'd fake me out, and then it'd beat me, and it'd get to this point, and it'd stop again. So by the time I get scored on, I've already got beat 4 times.
How annoying was that to you?
It was horrible. It was horrible. You know, I loved my brother. And then, okay, people start hearing that Dick Devenzio's down in the gym. People start coming to watch us work out, to see me get my butt kicked. It wasn't good for my sight. I didn't like waking up. I didn't like getting my butt kicked. There wasn't a thing I liked about that. Even though I loved my brother, when October 14th came, I thanked the Lord, because I wanted him the heck out of there so I could go back to playing against regular high school kids after school and actually winning.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, what do you think Dick Devenzio's secret sauce was, as far as what he was 5'10" or 11? What was it?
5'10". 5'10". And skinny.
5'10", skinny, Ambridge, and he's a first team parade All-American. What took him there? What do you think? I mean, you lived with him, you saw him, you watched it all. You had the front row seat, Dave. Like, what took him there? Because you don't go higher than that.
First off, he practiced, literally, you hear people say this, but he did, 6 to 7 hours a day. And we had this court, there was only one, Springdale's a small town. There was one court, it's behind the municipal building now. Actually, it's not there anymore, but there's still a little cement. I go there sometime just to bring back some memories. But there was just one court in the place, and he was down there all the time. And he used to bring 2 basketballs. You have any idea why?
To dribble.
Okay, that's what everyone would think. He did that some, but the main reason he brought 2 basketballs is when people in town would walk by and they'd want to shoot with him, that was taking away his practice time. And he brought 2 balls and would tell the guy, hey, can you go down and shoot there? I'm working. I mean, who does that when they're in junior high?
Who does that? Who does that?
Nobody. And then, just like in 9th grade, he was a real good 9th grade player. Once again, you weren't allowed to play varsity back then. You played 9th grade. And he broke his ankle. And I thought, well, he can't do anything for, 6 weeks. He was down our basement every night dribbling around his body and doing this and that. And it's just like he did things most people don't do to prepare himself to get to that point. And I'm going to add this. He put in so much time. That's why I'm not sure he would have ever been to the Chess Arena.
Right. I was just thinking that.
And later in our adult life, I asked him. I said, because I put in time, but not 7 hours a day. I put in about an hour and a half is what I thought. I'm going to work real hard for an hour and a half. And it got me decent results. I was a good high school player and a lousy college player, but I at least got to play in college. But I said to him, was that worth your time? Was it worth 7 hours to end up doing what you did? And he thought about it real hard, and he said, probably not. So you take it from there. I guess it depends what you want in life. I still think that took him places that and opened doors for him that it normally wouldn't have. Hell, it opened the door for me. It got me my job out at community college. But I was a little surprised at the answer, but not totally, because you sacrifice most. Like we're talking about my brother here, but we're talking about you're going to interview someone that's really good coming up here soon. I'm sure the same thing went on with him. You have to sacrifice certain things in one part of your life if you want this part of your life to be really good. It's too bad that has to happen, but That's just the way it is.
Well, yeah, especially, your brother. Your brother was not endowed with 6'8" LeBron James jumping ability and athleticism. He's 5'10", skinny little guy from Ambridge, and he just had to be so good with that ball.
Right.
He had to be that. Now, you said he was quick, too.
He was super, super quick. And
what kind of quick did you say?
I called him black quick, and that's what other people
what do you
said
mean
that to
by
me.
that? What do you mean by that?
It's like, well, you played ball growing up too.
I did.
And this is a bad stereotype, I guess, but when you're playing pickup and you don't know who you're playing, if you see you're guarding a white guy, you're thinking, okay, this should be a little easier. But when you see you're guarding someone black, you're like, I better get down there and get ready. And my brother was just super black quick, and I don't know if that was natural. I sure as hell didn't have it.
So did you say that, or did other people say that?
I heard other people say it before me.
So you
oh
heard
yeah,
that.
yeah.
So that was what was being said about
Yeah,
it.
exactly.
Interesting.
No one said that about me.
Well, yeah. Well, but you didn't have his work ethic. You were a different guy.
I didn't, and then just to compare and contrast, when the skills I had got me through high school fine, and I had a nice career. But then when you
there at NA, then where did you go?
I went to Kent State.
Okay.
And I had a few other offers, not a bunch. The one thing I tell people, I might have got more letters than anybody else. Not because I was better, but because I wasn't. I was good enough to get those Division I letters, but the real good players, the Division III schools say, well, we're not going to try for him. No, I wasn't that good, so I'm getting letters from everywhere in the country, all levels, because that's how it was. Like, whereas my brother wouldn't have heard from Division III teams. But just when you get to that level, and then people are, they're more athletic than me, they're probably taller than me and stronger than me. The rest of your skills have to be top notch and mine, like I said, my skills were good enough in high school, but then you get to college and people are better than you. I need all that other stuff, and I didn't work hard enough to have that.
You met some famous people at Kent State.
I did.
And who did you meet? Tell us who you
did.
met.
I was schoolmates with Jack Lambert and Nick Saban and Arsenio Hall and Steve Harvey.
Jeez Louise.
That is pretty good.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, and I wasn't good friends with any of them. I was acquaintances with all of them, and closest good friend was probably Steve Harvey. I wish, had I known he was going to do what he was a funny guy then. He interviewed me on KSU TV.
Did he?
Yeah. Not for basketball, I was running intramurals at that point, and he interviewed me on there. But had I known,
he interviewed you, and now we're interviewing you.
Yeah. it's the circle of life, right?
That's funny. I love that song. So I want to go back to the Roundball Classic and Sonny Vaccaro. The Roundball Classic in Western Pennsylvania, the younger generation has no idea how special that was. Sonny Vaccaro starts the Pennsylvania All-Stars, the best players in the state of Pennsylvania. And there are a lot of Philadelphia, honestly, but some Pittsburgh, and then you'd have a Tom McMillan somewhere in the middle of the state come together to play the United States All-Stars. These are the who's who of high school basketball All-Americans. And this is before the McDonald's All-American game is there today. And so Sonny Vaccaro had a game that was way ahead of everybody's time, and he does it in little old Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And so now your brother's playing in it, your dad's coaching in it, and tell us some thoughts about the Roundball, because I know you were there and your brother played and your father coached.
Before I'm getting to the Roundball, I'm going to give you one other Sonny Vaccaro story.
Okay.
The summer before my brother's senior year, Sonny, he just had a knack of knowing who was good, and he gets my brother and Wysick and Kaufman and Kenny Durrett and Petey Gibson and Montel Brundage to go to a camp in Philadelphia, a basketball camp, and to pay their way, I think they had to wait tables or do something like that, but they were fine with that. So they went there and they were playing. It was kind of a precursor to 5-star. They didn't have that back then. But so they go, Vaquero takes them out there, and they have a great week. And now the week's over. And Vaquero's not there. And I talk to Sonny sometimes, so he knows this, that I'm telling this story about him. Those 6 don't have a way back. He forgot. Like, he was the idea guy behind the Roundball, but he had a partner that did all the detail work for him, and he'll admit that. And back then, those 6 were in Philadelphia.
He left your brother in Philadelphia with Kenny Durrett and the Schenley boy.
Yes. And I think my brother, they had to make a bunch of calls. I think my parents
drove to Philly.
No, they wired them money so they could take a bus back. And Frank Kaufman verified this not too long ago. It was a ratchety bus that wasn't. Kaufman and Kenny Durrett both laid on the floor the whole way back, which can't be too healthy. But the way back from Philadelphia to Pittsburgh, there's 2 of the best players in Pennsylvania laying on the floor because they really didn't fit that well in the seats.
And those guys played against each other in the semifinals of the state of Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
And I mean, what a year that was.
Absolutely, but they knew each other very well. But now we'll get to the Roundball, which was Sonny's idea. And it was just, once again, it had been going on for a while. So to me, Pennsylvania plays the United States. That's just how it's supposed to be. When you think of it now, it's pretty crazy.
It is crazy.
But at the time, you didn't think that much about it. And like I said, I grew up in a basketball family, so I was around that all the time. But then my brother's senior year, obviously he gets selected to play. And then my father, since they won the state championship, he got selected to be the coach. And this is just the flat-out truth that I'm going to tell you. My father lost the game. He lost the game.
So explain that.
Okay. It was 10 people from Pennsylvania versus 10 people from the United States. And it came to the end of the 3rd quarter, and Pennsylvania was winning and kind of had control of the game. And my father put in 5 other guys. And he stood by it forever. He said, this is an all-star game, and everyone's supposed to play. And to contrast that, the United States had a player from Kansas that was highly touted, the best player coming out of Kansas. I do not recall his name. And they sent a closed circuit. No one did closed circuit TV back then. They did a closed circuit TV back to an auditorium in his hometown. So his whole town could watch him, and he got in 2 minutes in the whole game. And I think they played 40 minutes. I think they played 10-minute quarters then. So he got in 2 minutes. Well, my father just didn't think that should be. He didn't think it necessarily had to be exactly equal, but he thought everyone should play pretty close to about the same time. So he put those subs in, and the United States did not substitute. The United States took control of the game, and then my father did put the other guys back in, hoping they could lightning would catch lightning in a bottle, but it did not happen. But he never, even though he lost the game for Pennsylvania, he never apologized for it because that was just his philosophy.
What was the conversation in the Devenzio household after that? What did Dick think about that?
Well, I'm not positive. My father, he was one of those old Italian guys that you read about that
that were like what?
that were there was not a lot of gray area going on.
So it's black and white.
Black and white, and his way, we pretty much listened to that. So even if my brother thought, man, that was a bad decision, which he might have, no way do you say that in our household. So it never, my father explained it, and everybody accepted it, whether we wanted to or not.
So he was the boss.
Definitely. And not the boss here and here. He was the boss, and the rest of us were down here, you know? When I played for him, and this just wasn't when I played for him, but he had this, and I'll clean this up a little bit. He always said he's trying to make chicken salad out of chicken crap. And it's kind of funny when you hear him talking about it, but when you're on the team for 3 years, and you're the chicken crap. It's not that good a thing to hear, but that's just kind of what went on there.
I knew a guy that played in the Roundball, and one of his favorite saying is, "You can't make chicken soup out of chicken feathers."
Okay.
And so that's
the same thing.
It's in the chicken
that's
family.
A lot nicer.
Yeah, it's a little nicer. He prettied it up a little bit.
He did.
Right?
Yeah, he did. That's. I think I would have preferred that, but then again, I would have known what the heck was going on.
Yeah, you know. But he had another story. You have another story about when he went to Ambridge with Jabby or.
Oh, with Jabbo. Yeah,
Jabbo.
yeah. When you talk about my brother, you got to throw my father in there some. And so I told you, my father coached for 18 years at Springdale. Nice town to grow up in. Not a diverse town. I don't know. I think it's still that way, to tell you the truth. I'm not positive, but I know it's still mostly white, if not all white, but it was definitely all white then. So he moves to Ambridge, and it was a little more diverse. Not even as much as it is now, but it was a little bit. And his best black player was a guy named Vince Palmer that they called Jabbo. And it was a day I happened to be there in practice, and Jabbo comes down and kind of loafs a little bit and then just takes an outside shot that he probably shouldn't have taken. And then he kind of goes back slow on D, and someone drives by him and scores. And my father goes nuts and says, "Darn it, Jabbo, I've been waiting 18 years to get a black guy, and you play just like a white guy."
The Jabbo story. How about that? Now, so Bobby Knight was in the Sharon tournament, and what was the connection there?
Well, actually, those are two separate stories, but I'm gonna hit both of them.
Okay.
Dennis Weisick, who we've talked about, he goes.
Well, how tall was he?
Dennis Weisick was about 6'5", 6'6".
Okay.
He's probably 6'6" then. He's probably 6'4" now.
I get it.
I don't know for sure. Yeah,
I
we all
get
know that. No, Weisick. This was after my brother graduated, but it was the summer before Weisick's senior year. He was 1 year younger than my brother, and he goes to basketball camp at Army. And unbeknownst to almost all of us, the coach of Army then was Bobby Knight, but we didn't. He wasn't famous at that point. So Weisick comes back from the camp, and both his shins are just covered with scabs and bleeding, and I thought he got in a wreck or something. I said, "What happened?" He said, "Well, they had this coach there at Army, and we only had outdoor concrete courts, and he was having dive drills. And we were doing dive drills. And he said, well, there wasn't a choice.
What is a dive drill?
Where they roll the ball out, and like Knight would roll the ball out, and me and you have to go out and get the loose ball, so we'd both dive for it." Yeah. And Weisick said, like you said, going to be a first-team All-American. He was already pretty darn good at this point, but he's out there diving and getting all this happening to him. And now the postscript to this, he goes to Indiana, and I told you I get all these letters from all kinds of colleges. Well, I hear from Indiana, and my father did not get too much involved in the recruiting process. He just let us do what we want to do. But I got this letter from Indiana, and this is the one time he put, make sure you answer this letter, because what they did, they'd send you a basic form letter, and you filled out the stuff, and you sent it back in. And he said, make sure you fill out this letter. This is a good coach. But Weisick's legs were still on my mind. I knew who Knight was. That was the only letter that I had to throw it in a different wastebasket. I couldn't do it at my house because I was afraid my father would see it. But I think I took it to school and threw it in one of those wastebaskets, because if he's kicking Weisick's butt at a camp in the summer, what's he going to do to me? If he gives me a scholarship and finds out I'm not that good, I am fodder. That's what I'm going to be there. So I at least was smart enough to know, no one's going to do that to me. So I did not return my letter to Bobby Knight.
And so how about the Sharon
tournament? Okay, this is just a little compare and contrast here. Back then, there was no AAU after the season. But they had these postseason tournaments. There was a good one in Oakland. I think it was the Maccabea tournament or something like that. But the best one was the Sharon tournament. And people came from Ohio and New York. I remember seeing Bob Lanier when he was in high school at the Sharon tournament. But anyway, and then they would make exceptions for the good teams. I think my brother's team won the state championship, and then they gave them a bye into the wherever they were in the thing. And Ambridge wins the thing. My brother comes home with 5 trophies. Champion, MVP, high score, most courteous. There's no way he was the most courteous of all those people. Someone had to be more courteous.
Well, he was
him.
pretty courteous.
He was, but why would you give a guy that already won all those trophies? You're supposed to give most courteous to some poor kid.
Yeah, spread
Yeah.
Spread it
And
out.
I can't even remember the 5th one. I don't know what it was.
Would you win most courteous?
I don't think so. I like to think I'd be in the top half, but I don't think.
Okay.
But anyway, okay. So that was his experience with the Sharon tournament. Here's mine. Now, you tell me which story's better. I get a call from this place. I don't know who they are. And they say, hey, you want to come up and play for us? And at the time, I still didn't have a scholarship offer to a Division I school. And I really wanted that because obviously we talked about my brother Dick playing at Duke. My oldest brother, who wasn't even any freaking good, he played at Cornell.
Who?
Huck. His name was Huck.
That's your oldest.
Oldest brother. And he wasn't any. I know I was better than Huck. Huck was taller. It's funny, Dick got all the talent, but he worked harder than the rest of us. Huck was 6'4", and I was 6'1", and Dick was 5'10".
Cornell, Duke, and Kent State.
Well, but at the time, I didn't have Kent State going, but I didn't want to be. I didn't want to be Cooper Manning to Eli and Peyton, and it looked like that was going to happen. So I needed to get a D1 scholarship. I just had to get it.
I needed it.
I did. So since I didn't have one when the season ended, because I thought we were going to make the playoffs, we talked about this. Back then, only the section winner got to play in the playoffs. So we came in second my senior year, so I thought I was going to get seen down at the arena. And no, we lost the last game and we didn't get in. So now I'm scrambling to play in all these postseason tournaments so I get seen some more. So someone, I think it was called Willie's Amusement from Newcastle, called me. I said, yeah, I'm in. We had no practice, no nothing. And as I tell the story here, you're going to realize what I got myself into, I think. But it took me a while to process this, a high school senior. I drive up to Sharon. There was no Route 79 back then. You had to find 19 and get up there. It took a while to get there. But anyway, we get to Sharon. And I did have one high school teammate that was on my team. And then the other 8 kids, I had no idea who it was. And of course, we're the last game of the day. And I have to come back and go to school the next day. But last game of the day. So we're running behind time. And so we go in the locker room, but we got like almost a whole nother game to wait while we're in there. They immediately, me and one other kid was an Italian. They immediately made us captains, which just seemed a little weird to me because they didn't know who we were either. But the 2 Italian kids, you're captains. Now, our coach comes in. This was something like straight out of the movies. Our coaches, assistant coaches, I swear to God, they all have black leather jackets on, and they're all walking around. And it was Vinny and Carmine and Rocco and Dom, I think. Okay? So I'll just tell you 2 quick things. We're in the locker room, and there's a chalkboard up there with a key in there. And it's like 9 at night, and Vinny has sunglasses along with his leather coat. And he grabs a piece of chalk, and the other guys, hey, yeah, Vinny, show him what to do. So Vinny gets up there, and we're all looking. Like I said, we're high school kids. We're trying to process this. He draws in 5 circles, and then 5 X's, lays down the chalk, and he said, you guys take it from there.
You mean you, the players?
Yeah. he didn't know anything about basketball. and Dom and Rocco, they're laughing their ass off. One more thing. While I was in there, someone would come in and they would hear of all what we've done well. Okay, so you'd tell they were going to introduce us. So they'd say, I said I made all section twice. I made the Montour all tournament team. Da 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 da. And then I was trying to think of what else, and I said, and I won best dancer senior year at North Allegheny. And the guy looks at me. Dom is standing over me. He said, "Write it down." So the poor guy. So I think you see who was running this team here. And then the very last thing, we're playing the Pittsburgh City League All-Stars. And Jeep Kelly is on the team.
Jeep Kelly, Parade All-American.
Exactly. He, definitely the best player on the team. But we had a good bunch of guys on our team, and we got way behind at the beginning, and then we started playing together, and we ended up coming to tying it up and losing in overtime. But right when overtime was supposed to start, our coach yelled a name at the other coach that he shouldn't have yelled. Another coach came over, and he was going to do something about it. And it's late at night, and there's not that many people there. Vinny and Rocco and Dom and I can't even remember the other one. They're sitting right behind the bench. They all stand up, put their hand in their pocket real quick, and then cooler heads prevailed, and the other guy just went back. So my brother won 5 trophies, got all the accolades, but I had a hell of a story. That's a pretty nice mafia story, I think.
That's a good story.
And I have to go with that. You got to wear Hawaiian shirts. I got to tell stories.
Dave,
wasn't as good.
You're a great storyteller. I'm so glad you came and spent some time with us today. Before I sign off, I want you to plug your podcast.
Oh, thank you very much. I would have forgot.
I know you would have, because you're on a roll.
I am doing a podcast now, and it's not sports, but don't worry, we won't hit you with a religion. We won't hit you with politics. We try to be funny. We try, and it's Pittsburgh Dive Bar Talk, and Pittsburgh is PGH, just abbreviated, and then Dive Bar Talk. You can go to YouTube, like we're on here, and go to Pittsburgh Dive Bar Talk, and it'll come. We've already had 26 episodes. We try to be funny. We're throwing some other stuff in there, so give us a chance. If you have kids that are impressionable, maybe don't turn it on around them, because we are a little more liberal with our language.
Yeah, well, we're family friendly here.
Yeah, right, and so, I'm all for it.
And I appreciate that, but this hour just flew by. You got great stories. You got a lot more stories, and I think we're going to do some more with you.
Okay,
Is that
I'm
okay?
willing to. I'd love to.
Is that okay with you?
I'd love to.
I am so glad you came. Dick Devenzio he's basketball royalty in Western Pennsylvania, and you just gave us a lot of insight into yourself and your family and your brother. I mean, it was really great stuff.
It was, but the hour went by too quick. I probably shouldn't have included my stuff.
I
should have stayed with my brother.
But that's you. That's who you are, so you're here. So,
all right, well, thank you.
I mean, you got the Hawaiian.
I'm sorry about that I included myself.
It's okay.
Because I didn't turn out to be.
We want you to include yourself.
Okay, all right.
This is a big tent right here.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
And I hope you guys enjoyed our discussion with Dick Devenzio's little brother. Just a lot of really great stories. We're going to do some more shows with him. But I just want to say this real quick. Please be an organ donor and give the gift of life. It's the best gift you can ever give. Thank you for watching, and please join us for another edition of One on One. I'm your host, Lee Adams.